Welcome to the show. Our first guest today is Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. Congressman Jordan was elected to the House of Representatives in 2006, and I'm happy to report that he has a 100% ACU rating. That's the American Conservative Union. He represents the Cleveland suburbs, a very Republican sort of red district. Both John McCain and Mitt Romney carried his district when they ran for president. Congressman, thank you for joining us today.
Good to be with you today, George.
Let me just get your initial thoughts on your reaction to President Obama's State of the Union address. A lot of people think it was small ball. What was your reaction, and what are your colleagues saying about it?
My reaction was same old, same old. You know, obviously the president is good at, putting sentences together and communicating, but the actions are never there. And so I think, frankly, I think a lot of Americans have just said, we're just tired of it. We're tired of the same old stuff. And I think a lot of Americans have quit listening. So nothing bold there.
So you were not surprised that only about 33 million people tuned in. That's the lowest numbers, I think, since George H.W. Bush in 1992. So it didn't surprise you.
No, not at all. I mean, look, if it was more of the same. It was big government spending, big government regulation, and like I've said for a long time, if more government and more government spending were going to get us out of this economic mess, we'd have been out of it a long time ago, because that's all this administration has done for 5 years. And so I think a lot of Americans have just tuned it out and said, we know this guy's not going to solve the problem. Why do we need to sit through another one of his speeches?
Well, I couldn't disagree with you at all. It seemed to me also was more of the same. And the enthusiasm, even on his side of the aisle, didn't seem to be there as much this year. But let me ask you, he touched on a couple of issues. One of them, of course, is immigration, which has been an ongoing discussion for years now. He assumed he could do something about it his first year in office. What do you think is going to happen in the House of Representatives this year? We had a bill passed in the Senate. I know Speaker Boehner was talking about passing perhaps some pieces of that Republicans can agree on. What is your gut feeling you think is going to happen in the coming months?
You can't do immigration when you have an administration who doesn't respect the rule of law. It's that simple. This administration, 11 months ago, when the sequester first kicked in, March 2013, released 2,238 illegal aliens. 8 of them were level 1 felons, and they did it because they were trying to prove that, the sequester was going to be so bad. You cannot trust this administration. They haven't enforced the law, and now we're supposed to work with them and actually all things. There's no way you can make that work. And so until you get a new president, until you get someone else running the Senate, I don't see how you can do immigration reform at all. Now, there's a few things that you should be able to do that we've done in the House, but the Senate and the President, they just want to do the comprehensive bill that the Senate passed, which is just a non-starter and not what the American people want to see.
Haven't there some indications, though, that the White House might entertain some pieces if they can't get anything else, or is that just talk?
Well, they've kind of said that, but actually what they've also said, remember, Chuck Schumer said, if the House sends us any bill, for example, the whole country knows you should have stronger enforcement on the border. I think the President could do that right now without even legislation, because I think the law is the law. But let's say we do some things to actually strengthen, put more agents there, provide maybe some additional dollars, take it from somewhere else in the budget, put more dollars. We passed that. Chuck Schumer said they'll take that bill, and they'll amend all the crazy stuff that they put in their Senate bill. They'll amend that on there, and they'll go to conference committee. Well, that's not what the American people want. The American people want you to deal with the border security. The American people want you to deal with E-Verify. The American people want you to deal with a good agriculture guest worker program. They don't want all this other baloney that's in the Senate bill. So Chuck Schumer said, you send us anything, we'll go to conference and we'll put everything else that we want in there, and then there's going to be a final up or down vote on that bill. That's not the direction to go.
Well, so you're of the school of thought that the president, no matter what you give him, as he's done with Obamacare, just cherry pick what he wants to follow and obey and ignore the rest. So yeah. You're at the point, I would assume, that you and a lot of your colleagues just don't trust him anymore. So is that where you are?
I think that's where a lot of American people are too, because there's nothing like experience as a teacher, and experience has shown us. I mean, he hasn't enforced the current immigration law. He hasn't enforced all of Obamacare. He's given exceptions to his favorite special interest under Obamacare. He hasn't enforced the work requirements in the welfare laws that were passed. So, experience is a great indicator of what means future. The president doesn't want to follow the law. He wants to do things his way, and that's tough to have a partnership with someone like that.
That's understandable. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Which brings me to the executive orders. Now, he told us he's going to take his pen and his phone and do whatever he wants to do in the coming months if the Congress doesn't act on some of his programs. Do you think there is much damage he could do yet with executive orders, or do you think that's more talk?
No, he could. I mean, some executive orders are fine as long as they comply with the law. You know, the chief of the executive branch of the government indicates to all the millions of employees in the executive branch, here's how we're going to go about business. As long as it's consistent with the law, what the House and the Senate have passed, what the law is, that's fine. It's when executive orders directly contradict what the law is, that's when it's unconstitutional. That's when it's a problem. So when the president just decides that he's going to waive the mandate under the Obamacare law for employers to comply, he just unilaterally decided that's a problem. That directly violates the law that was passed. Now, even though it's a law that I disagree with and didn't vote for, it still directly contradicts the rule of law.
So is anyone going to take him, I'm of the opinion that there'll be several cases coming down the Supreme Court this year which say he's overstretched his power. Are members of Congress taking him to court to say that he has violated the law, particularly on Obamacare?
Yeah, Ron Johnson. Best example. Ron Johnson Senator Johnson has the case that they've filed suit that says, look, you shouldn't be able to give this special deal to members of Congress on their health care and say that they get the employer contribution subsidy for their health care. And God bless Senator Johnson for bringing that, because Obamacare directly explicitly says members of Congress have to go into the exchange if they're going to get health care through their employer.
Right.
And if you go into the exchange, you would not get a subsidy, but yet members of Congress are getting that subsidy because President Obama said they could. That's a direct contradiction of the law, and Senator Johnson taking him to court.
Well, I hope he succeeds, and I hope you guys continue to fight the good fight there. Congressman, I want to thank you for joining us today. Good luck in your efforts in this coming spring in Washington. Thanks, and have a good day.
You bet. Take care. Thank you.
Coming up in the next segment, I'm going to be talking to the Malzberg panel featuring Congressman Pete Hoekstra and Newsmax chief political columnist John Gizzi. John Gizzi is an old friend, and I look forward to talking to him this next segment. I am George Marlin, filling in for Steve Malzberg on Newsmax TV. We'll be back in a few minutes.
The Steve